Axons Unleashed.
Alrighty, after a couple of weeks break, welcome back to Axons Unleashed. My name's Robbie. I'm joined by Tamara, Dan and Dane, and we're going to talk about all things ADF retirement, ADF transition, ADF entrepreneurship. I guess I'm really excited though. I want to start off this new season of the podcast talking about what my first few years were like in the military. I got some feedback really like, I loved hearing the backstory and I loved the, this and this and this. So, Tammy, I know you've got some stories to tell. Dane, I caught up with you on the weekend. You were telling me some funny shit. And I'm like, we're going to put that in the podcast. Dan's now hearing this for the first time. So as a little bit of background, ladies and gents, these guys don't know what the run sheet is for today. They do now because we're going to talk about my first 5 or 6 years in the military. But I guess I want all of you to reflect upon your basic training, what it was like. What are your first impressions? Did you have to make that phone call back to your parents, fucking crying like I did, going, "Why have I done this?" So I can't wait to share that with you. Morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
Hey, it'll be an interesting procession because as I walked in the room here, I noticed that no one else has any notes ready to go for today, but Robbie's got his laptop hidden, like pressed right up against his chest so no one can look over his shoulder and read the notes either. So it'll be interesting, mate, as to see where we're basically going to go with this and sort of where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, I love it. So this is all about just us being even more vulnerable and us disclosing and like unleashing ourselves to you guys, the listeners and the audience even more. So,
I'm surprised you didn't use an analogy there, like without warning or no cuff too tough.
They're all coming.
I thought there was going to be something different that last one.
Oh. Yeah, they're all coming.
So don't need to. I've taught them all to everyone else.
So remember, Dane, the only bloody catchphrase that matters to you, mate, in the Air Force is room service.
Yes, absolutely.
We've gone through that last time. So season 3 is just like we're not going to. There's no cap as far as how many episodes this is going to go. Now we're just going to go forever. Not going to say there's going to be fucking 5,000 episodes like what Joe Rogan's got, or maybe there will be. Who knows? But certainly we're going to go long and fast. We've got heaps of awesome guests coming.
It depends if people want to listen to you that long.
True.
Oh God, Robbie Turner again.
All right, so why I joined the ADF, like basically, Mum was like the manager of Kmart for 30 years. Dad got his own trucking and earth moving, business. So I grew up in a small country town called Port Pirie. Finished year 12 in 1989.
What type of a young man was Robbie Turner before he joined the military? Like you just gave us like what Mum and Dad were, and you grew up in Port Pirie. Like, were you like as energized and as deliberate in all your approach as a young kid, or is that something that got developed?
Is that what it's called?
I think so. Like, I was right. I didn't have a girlfriend at high school. Chicks didn't want to have a bar of me. Not that that's really changed too much over the years. I've found the one now, haven't I, honey? Thank you. So I wasn't sort of that guy, but certainly I had I had quite good sporting prowess. I was the 100-metre champion. I was playing A-grade footy at 15 years old, etc. So
in Port Pirie though.
In Port Pirie, right? So, but country sport is fucking massive, as anyone would realise. So. There's a lot of great, great footballers and sporting people who have come from the country.
A little redhead Dennis the Menace.
I was a little redhead Dennis the Menace. Sometimes when I see Amy's son here, I'm like, there's a bit of a look in the bloody mirror from 40 odd years ago, whatever it is.
20 years ago. He's 28.
He wishes.
Yeah. So, like everyone who knows you now know that you have a large amount of energy about you, I suppose, and that's always been the case since I've known you. Sort of lots of people remark about like, oh, Robbie Turner, that's the guy that was just fully intense and really into everything that he got into. Like, were you as channeled with that energy when you were a young fella, or was it sort of spraying everywhere effectively?
I don't know is the answer. I can only assume yes. Like I've always been an optimistic and happy and, pretty, I was going to say normal person then, but what you just described is not normal. I don't know, man. Like, I just fucking know. We are who we are. So, but I guess I had no intentions of joining the military. Both my grandfathers served in World War II. None of them spoke a word about being in the military. I didn't even know they were in the military until after I joined, and then I had an interest in it, of course. I just knew that I didn't want to stay in that small country town. I loved growing up there. Close-knit community. I see even now on Facebook, kids that I went to school with ended up marrying each other, and they've now got kids, and those that got kids and kids. So that's like that intergenerational, just sprawl of people that just continue to live in those certain areas. So that's interesting to see, because I left at 17 and then went and joined the army, and basically landed myself in bloody Wagga Wagga, Kapooka there, and just like off full metal jacket, sitting in a chair, getting my fucking head shaved at 17 years old, and I had no idea. I had no interest in the military whatsoever. Never used to play cowboys and Indians, never used to play hide and seek, of course, kiss chase you, all that sort of stuff at school when you were like fucking 6. But I had no military flavour about me. I didn't know anything, zero. So I was a real cold start when I got to the military. What about you, mate? Let's just switch across to you. Why did you join the military, Dan?
So my granddad also, he was over in New Guinea for war in the Pacific, I suppose. He only got over there for, as I later found out, he was probably only over there for about a month before he got collected by some shrapnel, sent back to Australia, everything like that. But very much the same, like never spoke about it, right? Which I think is almost like one of those testaments of, that they've done it if they never spoke about it again. And my nan's brother, he was actually Delta Company 6 RAR over in Vietnam as well.
Yeah, very famous unit.
During Long Tan there. So he was with the platoon headquarters. So there was a little bit of sort of background going on. But yeah, never really spoken about, never really showed too much of an interest either, to be honest. And then I was at uni at the time. I think I was about 2 years through my engineering degree, and I was like, what am I going to do after this? A lot of my mates were sort of streaming down the mining sector, the air conditioning sector, like a lot of those ventilation systems you do need in the minings. And I was like, do I really want to go and work in a mine for the rest of my life? So I had a bit of a realisation there. And would have been an O week at uni when the sort of the careers expo was going on, and Fence Force had their little banner there, and I'm like, oh yeah, that seems okay. And I just sort of put my name down, and I actually didn't even tell my parents about it until I'd like gone for 2 or 3 sort of sessions over there, and I was like, and I'd pretty much been picked up and ticked the box, and they go, yep, absolutely, you're in. You can come in and sneak in through this back door as an engineer, and hopefully never ever have to do real engineering when I was in the military, which was helpful.
What did your parents say when they found out?
I don't even remember. It was like
Were they happy?
Yeah, I think they were happy. I don't think they were surprised per se. I think they were just like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good little career. At the time, one of my cousins was actually married to another bloke who was a soldier as well. So I spent a little bit of time speaking to Gav about all that sort of stuff. I probably spoke to him more in the lead up to that than I did to my own parents, because he'd been bouncing in and out of Afghanistan at that period of time as well. Had been in a couple of IED incidents while he was over there as a Bushmaster driver and stuff like that. So later, towards when I actually enlisted, at that point in time, I was probably learning a little bit more, but from people who are actually doing it, rather than going back to my mum and dad for their feedback or advice or anything like that. I was always the child, so there's 3 of us. I've got an older sister and a younger sister.
Same here.
And I was pretty much the child that always just kind of did what I wanted to do.
Same here.
And I never really went to mum and dad for permission or to seek forgiveness later. I was just like, I'll make my decision and I'll live with it. I'll lie in my own bed and go do that. So yeah, that was me. I sort of, a couple of years into uni, picked up a cheeky little scholarship there and finished off the rest of my uni degree, and then totted off along to RMC, where I, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you speak to, met Mr. Robbie Turner, the one and only.
It is. We will go through that in a second. So it's interesting. You joined the military without telling your family. My family had it in their mind that I was joining the military without telling me, because we just hopped in a car and drove.
On the bus, didn't
well,
they?
we hopped in a car, drove down to Adelaide, and we're like, "Come on, Robbie, we're going to go and find you a job." I just finished doing year 12. I was still only 16 years old, because my birthday is not till the end of November, so I was like the youngest kid in my class. With that year of birth sort of happening after everyone else's, or my birthday coming around anyway. So we're in the car and we're going down. It's like, what are we going to sort of do? Like, where are we going? Like, we just got a few things lined up for you. And sure as shit, I find myself in the ADF recruiting office, looking at pamphlets of Air Force and Navy and Army, and I literally filled out paperwork for all 3. This is how random it is about me joining the Army and how it is I got to that point. The Army was just the first ones to get back to me. Said, right, yep, everything looks good on paperwork. Let's hop on a bus, come down, do your aptitude and fitness testing, et cetera, which all seemed to go pretty well. And then, fucking 6 weeks later, I'm at bloody Kapooka getting my head shaved.
Meant to be.
Yeah. Dane, tell us about you, mate. I know you because I know you've had told some ripper stories back in podcast season 1 about us finding each other and you being in the friend zone for quite a while. But yeah, tell us about your background. How did you become to be an Air Force soldier and then eventually an officer?
So mine was kind of they're similar. Like I didn't come from a background where we had any military influence. You know, I found a lot too when you sort of go through it that there's a lot of people who like, oh, my dad was in the RAF and my uncle, and they're a RAF brat, and they sort of move around. They almost become assimilated to that, and they go and do their military service. So I didn't have any of that. So the way that I sort of had my eyes, I sort of opened to that as a career is my brother-in-law. So my older sister, so I've got 3 older sisters. So she's 9 years older than me. He's probably 12. So like with my age, he was always like he was in, and I was in primary school. You know what I mean? So, but sort of once I sort of got out of school and I was working and so on and so forth, he used to always send me pictures. I think I was saying like a picture of him drinking a beer on a Monday at 9 o'clock and going, you don't work very hard in the military. And at the time I was like, oh, how dare, slight on society, this guy. My taxes, I was one of those guys. But after a while I started thinking like maybe he's onto something because he was getting a degree paid for. Like there was a lot of sort of stuff and they always had like very cheap, and as I sort of got more accustomed to him, we became good mates, and I sort of went through a bit of stuff with work and I thought maybe this is not a bad idea. So I remember I was literally down at Coolangatta, so not that far away, went and did my beep test there. Back then you'd run in the building, so they just had chalk on the carpet.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was crazy. I remember running and there was these, I'm not being a gender person here, but we had these people there that as if they had no idea this was coming. And they were running this beep test and they were going like, come on, you can do it. I was like, we're at fucking 5. If these guys can't get to the 6, how are they going to survive? Like I was like running up and down the beach, right? Because I was in prep. Yeah, so I sort of went through that.
What was the pass mark? 6.5?
6.5, mate.
We know about that already, don't we?
I'm still on that.
Go back to season 1.
I'm still on that now. So just before I sort of went into recruits, because I was 27, and I just remember Baz calling me the day before and going, when you get down there, mate, and he gave me a bit of a pep talk about when I got down there. And I sort of carried that sort of mantra. I think I was saying in season 1, like, don't be first, don't be last, don't let them know your name, don't throw your hand up, just be one in the crowd. He goes, in the end, just remember, every single person that's in the RAF has gone through this. So if 10,000 fucking people can go through it, you can get through it. He said, but just be the face in the crowd, mate, because this is only one drop in the ocean for your whole career. You just got to get through it.
I wish I had to take that advice, because when you're playing A-grade footy in the rough and tumble of country footy and you're around men as a 15-year-old, it's all bets are off in the sheds, put it that way. And it's it's very, very rough and tumble. There's C-bombs and F-bombs and flying everywhere. So that's what I thought it was to be a man. If you could swear and say whatever you wanted to, then that was the whole thing about being a man. Certainly that didn't go down too well when I remember when I was running up the side. Actually, neither of you know what it is. Anyway, there's a big fucking road that goes up the side of the golf course, because I saw on the pamphlets that they sent out to us, says there's a beautiful golf course at Kapooka. I'm like, I should take my sticks with me. And they're like, no, don't bring your sticks to basic training. Like, this is like, you don't bring your own golf sticks to basic training. So we're literally running up the side of the road here, and I turned to one of and then we're on like all the 3 ranks and everything, and I'm trying to learn how to march and swing my arms and bloody run and
square getting everywhere.
Yeah, it's just shit. That's what I'm doing with my arms right now. If you're watching on YouTube, you're fucking laughing at me. And I turned around to one of the instructors who was like running side by side of me, and I said, you CUNTs are probably sick of running up this hill all the time, aren't you? And he just looked at me and he didn't say anything and just kept running. So I've just called my recruit instructor a C-bomb. This is like week 1.5, right? Oh, God. I'm just being casual because I used to run along bloody side blokes all the time. Sure enough, got back to the barracks. Recruit, turn up. I'm like, yep. Walk down, bang, there's a bloody platoon sergeant waiting for me at the end. Straight in to see the platoon sergeant, and he literally tore my ass. The bloody gave me the rev down. I thought to myself, I thought my old man was a hard as fuck bastard. But this platoon sergeant, bloody cheeky dirty mo like what you've got on right now. This is in January 1990, right? I was in fucking greens, SLR and greens sort of shit. So it was a long, long time back then, and you could, he fucking tore me to shreds. And sure enough, I found myself on restriction of privileges. So I was out the front, and the whole fucking platoon was out there at 9 o'clock at night for a whole week marching around the parade ground because of what I did. Oh. And I was the most fucking hated person in that platoon.
I know that feeling.
It was fucking... it was fucking not good at all. So yeah, sure enough, a few days later, like when we can have our one weekly phone call, no mobile phones or anything back then, right? So I'm dialing on the bloody yellow phone, doing a reverse charge call back to my parents' place. Fucking bawling my eyes out to my mum. I'm like, what have I done? Why am I here? I'm like, this is not the place for me. I want to come home. This is
What
shit.
was Margie's response?
Oh, she's like, oh, you'll be right, love, and just like stick with it, and your grandfathers will be proud that you're here, and all that sort of stuff. Writing letters home, pouring my heart out with the bloody letters that I could write home and everything. So
Have they been kept? Those letters?
yeah, I reckon they have. Yeah. I'll be very surprised if they haven't.
I'll have to suss Margie.
Margaret,
Mate.
now that you're listening, we want to see those letters, right?
Mate, it was shit. It was speak about the transition from being a cocky, confident, fit, motivated young man. I guess maybe that's the traits that you're asking me to put forward before. I couldn't answer, but I'm in the zone now. I got bloody torn back to bare bones, and I literally was at the bottom of the platoon and had to start again. From there. So, did either of you guys? And I'm not excluding you here, Tammy. I'll come to your many diverse experiences in the military real soon. But tell us about your
Recruits.
Now, what was what was like the? We're talking about RAF recruits here, mate. You said RAF brat before, and I thought, I haven't even heard of that before. I've heard of Army brat.
We learned a little story on the weekend.
On the weekend?
Yeah, tell us that.
I've got a few.
About the handy tips you have for some recruits on how to save time, I guess you'd say.
So I guess even though my instructions were keep your head down, and it's funny, like when you were sort of talking about before about it's not until you're sort of going through that transition and going into the military that people that have had any military service. So my mum's Belgian, right? She came when she's 20. So my granddad, so you say Petra in Flemish, he actually served in the Belgian army in World War II. Never said a word to me for 27 years about it until I was like, I'm going in.
I thought you were going to say never said a word to you for 27 years, and then you're like, oh.
That's my grandson. I don't want to fucking talk to him.
Yeah, now you're like, oh, now you're joining the military.
I'm actually going to bring that up soon. Going to Belgium, that is.
So so when I was sort of going in, same thing. So the army called me first, and I remember him just saying, like, don't join the army. And I was like, all right, I'll stay strong. And my brother-in-law as well was in me and goes, so you don't want to fucking go do that. And then I was like, all right, I'll stay put and wait till the RAF comes around. And they did eventually. And then sort of when I went in, and it's hard to fucking be the grey man. Like, because I was 27, and I remember like when I first got in, and you go down to get your head shaved, and like when I got down there, I was like, just short back and sides for this dude. Who's this is RAF-based
It'll be very short.
Yeah, and he's like, oh mate, I think you need to shave it. I'm like, oh well, no, just and then I go, no, just short back and sides, mate, just do that. And he goes, you can go ask the sergeant, and the sergeant's outside going like, get in the fucking line, and just ripping into people outside. And I was like, just shave it, mate. Shave it, whatever you got to do. I don't want to go anywhere near that bloke. But I had like multiple sort of things. So in the end, I sort of, because I was a bit older, I became the course orderly for 2 weeks. Detrimental, right? So, but I had these things. I used to always try and think, Robbie's called me on the weekends, goes, you're smart, lazy. That's what you were. But I'd have ones like, so he had to go field for 3 days. And I remember how painful it was to clean your weapon because of all the carbon, right, when you're shooting the blanks. And I was like, it's all good. Once I get out there, I'm standing in my pit, and there's like 5 rounds, shoot and all this. And I hadn't shot anything for 2 days. And I got to the last night. I'm like, this is fucking brilliant. Because every time during the day, they're like, weapon check. And they keep on shoving their fingers all in these different chambers and stuff. And going, ACR Roach has got a beautiful, everyone can... Beautiful, he's and I was like,
it well.
Yeah, so I got to the last night, and I had these
around.
blanks. I ended up going out on picket, going out and burying them and hiding them. So I went through 3 days, never shot. Like I protected this outpost, never shot anything, and it was brilliant because my weapon was great. And they were like, he's fantastic. But then I have like,
and you said a similar thing with your little stove as well.
So they're just eating all my food cold, and that'll cook. Everyone's making these hot chocolates and shit. Then they're getting blasted because they can't clean them and get them back to original. Yeah, just
stove.
Stuff like that.
So he never cooked. He literally never set it on
just
fire,
ate it cold.
so that he never had to
For the
clean
grand total
it.
of 72 hours, mind you.
Fucking
yeah,
mate.
it was it was a struggle. But anyway, so they keep holding mine up in front of everyone going, this is how you clean it, this is a great fucking, but it had never cooked, right? That's why it looks so good. And anyway, so I had a lot of sort of stuff like that. So underneath your bed, you had your sleeping bag. So once I finally did get my bed made right, I was like, well, I'm not fucking sleeping on that. It's taken me bloody weeks to get that 30 centimetre fold. So every night I'm on the carpet. And I just sleep on the carpet every night, you know, because I was like, well, it saves me time in the morning while I'm watching all these dickheads in my room trying to measure their bloody fold and getting blasted, whereas mine was just picturesque the whole time. And then I had other ones with like short changes. So I'd come back from PT and like it worked for a couple of weeks, but I remember I'd come back from PT, get changed, and it's always a crazy time. You got 30 seconds to get out of your PT, you know, unachievable stuff.
Doing a split.
Just to grind, you know. So I get up and go, well, I'll just throw me bloody cams over the top of it. So I'm standing in the hallway and they're walking up and down. They get to me, come back, and he walks backwards and he stops and he turns and looks at me and he pushes down my green, because that's when we had the greens, the blues hadn't come in yet. And he pulls down my green undershirt and there's my blue PT shirt. And he just fucking rips into me. He goes, once again, ACR Roach thinks he can outsmart the system. And next thing I got, everyone's out doing drill.
Same here.
And they're all just going like, fucking Dane's killing you. Dane's killing us in there. Yeah, so just, and that was pretty much my recruits, just trying something and then getting my ass kicked for
I
it.
just think it's hilarious that you slept on the floor in a sleeping bag to not make your bed.
I had a good posture after that.
But it's a little bit like what you say here when you have new people come and start at Axon. It's like fucking madness for the first couple of months, but then the jigsaw puzzle makes sense. Once the jigsaw puzzle made sense to me, I actually started to get a bit of traction. I loved being in the army. I was fucking first over the bloody obstacle course. So, you know, I was not that guy who wasn't shooting. I was fucking shooting all my rounds at everyone, at everything. I loved it. Like I really, really did. So, Tammy, let's switch across to you because I know you've got a very long and distinguished history from a military perspective as well. Tell us about that, Corporal.
Corporal. Corporal Moore in 203 Regional Cadets in
Stand
Parramatta
fast.
in Sydney. Yep.
March on the banner.
Yeah, 1990, I'd say 1997 to 1999 maybe?
Now, I can only assume you didn't get your head shaved.
No.
No. So you were like, what, 13, 14, 15?
Yeah.
Young lady?
Yeah.
Why did you go to the cadets?
Probably to meet boys, really.
Fair enough.
There's plenty there.
You know what? That's probably a great place to start.
My parents were pretty strict, so I think it was kind of just to be a bit social, I guess. One of my friends from school had started doing it and brought me along, and I thought that was pretty cool. Sleeping in hoochies,
Yeah.
bivouacs.
Now, tell us about your. You've got a very refined palate. You've eaten some amazing food around the world. You're telling me all the time about you need to interpret the menu for me.
This is because you look at our dog food and you go, oh, it's like a dehyde. And
yes.
I'm like,
Rehydrate.
what?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, this is so good. This is like the stuff I used to eat in the army. And I'm like, oh, from Rat Packs. I remember those.
Tell us about your Rat Pack stories.
I never ate a single one. I was not eating that dog meat. I would transfer.
Dog meat? What is fucking highly refined meat from the 1970s?
And ours, the cadets always got the expired packs. So ours were like,
Don't get me wrong. All of them.
We all got the expired packs.
and I would just trade them for 2 fruits, M&Ms and Sayos and basically live for 3 days on that.
And what about fuck off biggies?
Yeah, they're all
Yeah,
biscuit sandwich jam filled.
Oh,
I don't
You know,
what that
they're
is.
called fuck off biscuits because if anyone wants to trade them, there's only one word. Fuck off. That's with a hyphen, by the way. Hey, so I sort of got to the end of my. I love it, Tammy, that you're Corporal Moore from the bloody cadets back in the day. You love it.
Dane, when you found out about that, you're like, I can normally pick a cadet.
Yeah.
I did not pick
Oh, tell us your story. You saw a bloody warrant officer cadet or something. Who told me that
I
story
think-
recent?
yeah.
Fucking listen to this.
So this is in recruits as well. So, you know, in recruits, so I've got this little mate. His name's Saini. He's a little Indian fella. So we're in the fucking mess and we walk out. And back then, like, everyone's still trying to work out the ranks. So, like, people are calling corporals fucking sergeants and getting in trouble and you've got to go do these rank slides and all that and draw them. So I'm walking out and there's all these cadets there. I said to Saini, I'm like, oh, mate, you're going to have to fucking salute that. You're going to have to salute that. Warrant officer just said, and he's like, oh, shit. So he walks up to this kid who's probably 12, throws him the bone, and I just burst out laughing. And then he gets berated from our MSI because he sees him. He goes, not only have you just saluted a cadet, he's not even a fucking officer. I Oh, I loved it, mate. I loved it. So
This is how Dane. That's how you remain the grey man, just by throwing other people under the bus, mate.
poor Saney.
Are you still friends with him?
Yeah.
You'll have to share the link to this
He's a
one.
good fella.
Tell him
that
he
was
gets
gold.
a cameo.
So as I sort of started to get my shit together at Kapooka, I'm just about to leave Kapooka too, ladies and gents. Of course, you get the preferences to go to each corps come round, and they give a presentation about what each corps does, what the armoured corps does, what the artillery does, what the infantry does, what the engineers do, what the truckies do, what the medicals do, like fucking everyone. Like holy shit. And you have still, I had zero idea what the rest of the army did, look like, acted, did. I just fucking knew about run, down, crawl, observe, aim, fire. I knew how to put fucking cam cream on, eat a rat pack with everything, by the way, put a fucking hoochie on and go over the obstacle course and fucking fire my gun. And I knew how to salute, march, all that sort of shit. That's it. That's all I knew. But there was this bombardier, his name's Bombardier Kraut, ended up being a fucking warrant class 1 in the artillery, I believe. I saw him once. He wasn't in our platoon, but I saw him doing instructional on something else. I'm like, fucking Bombardier, he's the only other dude who's not called Corporal. That's a fucking cool name. I had no idea he was from the artillery. I had no idea what he did. But as soon as their corps preferences came along, they said, in boom, 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 I said, artillery, boom. I'm just going to fucking tick that. I didn't know they had guns, cannons, fucking whatever else. So that's the reason why I put it in there. And then I was one of only 3 that got chosen to go to the artillery at the end of the recruit course.
So you literally chose it to be called Bombardier.
Yep. That's it.
Wow.
That's how I ended up in the Royal
really?
Regiment.
Research.
Lots of research was done
I didn't realise you did that at recruits. So you got streamlined there at the end of it.
Back in those days, yeah.
Wow.
Well, now I believe you get streamlined when you first join. It was like in the last 3 weeks you started to get preferences, and it was a little bit like what Duntroon is, Dan. Like your performance on the course then gives you a bit of a pecking order about whether you do or don't get choice.
That's crazy.
Preference 1, 2, or 3.
Raf, you select it before you go in.
Oh, well, mate, nowadays with the army, they're like, yeah, you get to select it before you get in. But if you don't get the one you want, don't worry. You can change it later. I'm yet to find someone who's been able to change their career preference at Kapooka.
Yeah, that's a DFR myth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So 23rd of January 1990, I marched out of Kapooka. It was good. Mum and Nan came over, fucking proud as punch. Went and had bloody beers in the Vic Hotel in Wagga, etc., etc.
Oh yeah.
Really great memories. Shipped off on a bus directly to Manly. So the School of Artillery was in Manly back then.
Yeah.
Before it went down to Puckapunny. Yeah, the North Head.
Yeah.
So here's me. Still, I was 17 years, 1 month and 23 days when I joined the military. So I'm obviously now, not even 17 and a half yet. Grew up in a small country town, didn't even have a set of traffic lights, and I'm fucking lobbed in Manly.
You would have loved that.
It was gold. It was it was awesome. So this is like back in the early 90s, right, where there was no bloody Tongan bouncers out the front checking people's IDs and shit. Like no one gave a fuck then. You could get, walk in anywhere and do anything. But a really great memory I had is that we as the latest graduates from Kapooka got chosen to then go and push all the World War I veterans in the Anzac Day March in Sydney. Because remember, all the World War I veterans were still alive back then.
Yeah.
So, there was probably 100 or so of them. And I got chosen to push the wheelchair of a World War I veteran. Never been to Sydney before, of course. Growing up in a bloody town with only 15, 20,000 people there. And there's fucking hundreds of thousands of people lining the bloody joint. So
There's probably more people at the march than there was in your whole town.
that's what I just said. Hundreds of thousands of people fucking lining the streets. And from that moment on, I was like, fuck, I'm never going back to the country. If this is what it's like.
You got lost or something. Don't you push him, suddenly you're down another street.
No. There's
It's like someone's stolen a world bomb.
no. It's funny when you're in a sort of procession, you just follow the person in front, and you shouldn't get lost. But no, it was a fucking really awesome thing, and just to be there, cenotaph. That was the first time I sort of heard the last post. That's when I really started to get the first feeling of, fuck, I'm in the military. I'm now, you sort of knew about the Anzac spirit and the Anzac legend back at school, blah 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 blah. But it's certainly not as publicised and got as much attention and vibe as what it does now. But yeah, I really sort of started to feel like I was in the military. I'm like, wow, I think I've now done the right thing, and this is really cool.
I feel like even some of our staff have felt that as well with the Anzac Day stuff. Like before, it's kind of, stuff you did at school or about it, but you don't really have that connection. And I feel that even our non-military people, staff members, They feel that real connection now that they're a part of the Axon family, and even, our extended Axon community. Once you have that sort of connection, it really means something
I
different.
like they prioritise it too. Like they come and they partake because they know it's very special to us. Like so, I celebrate Anzac Day with the same 5 or 6 blokes. I've been celebrating it from when I went in and came in AC and got posted to my first unit and stuff. And we've been mates ever since. And we always said no matter where we go, we're always on Anzac Day come back together and celebrate it together. So it's nice though because you come back and some of them are still in, some of them work for Boeing and gone on to different things and so on and so forth. But it's nice to sort of come back and have a beer and sort of when I grew up and you heard about it, it never felt like, you knew of it, you knew of the sacrifice and stuff, but it's stuff that's sort of just taught to you and told to you. But then when you go in and you meet people and all that sort of stuff, you
start to feel it.
Yeah, you start to feel it and the excitement going into it and fucking tour up and at the pub. And I just used to love all that side to it, I just enjoy it so much.
I know this year it meant a lot more to Shay and Sham from Ramsden Law. I know Deb, our mortgage broker, just them sharing it with us this year. When they came afterwards, they were like, I've never experienced an Anzac Day like that, and just feeling that connection. So it was so good.
Yeah, you've never had the hangover the next day.
We even had Christy, who's a flight sergeant in the Air Force, fly up from Canberra to the Goldie to come and spend it with Axon, as a client. So that's
really, really
awesome.
cool. And so a bit of a movement that sort of, I was getting fucking texts from Shay. So I heard she was here first thing in the morning, right?
Yeah,
and then I
she
started getting
was.
these text messages from her at because I was still up in Brisbane.
Staying for one
coming down.
drink.
Yeah, staying for one drink. So it's 4:30 in the afternoon. She's like, "It's Shazza here," and I was just thinking, "Shit, she's
She's enjoying it.
Hey,
So next year, anyone that wants to join us, come along and
There's an early invitation.
yeah.
So it's one of those things I love to not being in Kapooka anymore. I'm out. I'm a gunner now. Got promoted to gunner. But let me tell you the introduction. There's a little saying in the artillery, and Dan, you spent some time up at the A12 Medium Regiment as it was then in Darwin. It is I tell you what. How would you describe the regimental environment in an artillery unit?
Oh,
Intense.
It's actually what I would refer to as regimental. It is very regimented in every single step they do.
What
everyone,
do you mean by that?
as in, if you don't like being yelled at, don't go to artillery. I remember one day the guns were actually getting put on some aircraft. So these, this is up in Darwin, so the aircraft have landed out at the RAF base there, driven the guns out, and the BSM was just tearing shreds off all the gunners and the bombers and everything like that. And I swear to God, the pilots and the loadies were shitting themselves because of how much yelling was going on. And that's
Normal.
it wasn't scary. That's just how they talk. It's just get used to being yelled at and yelled at and yelled at.
Pilots are not used to that.
Because here's the thing.
I would be so scared.
Because here's the thing: if something goes wrong when there's a 15 or 43 kilogram projectile in the air and it's going to fucking land in the wrong spot because someone hasn't followed the drills or they didn't do the checks.
Bunch of HE at the back end of it.
The ruthless implementation of the independent check wasn't done, and you're going to fucking kill someone or something, or bloody, fire on a bloody Mr. Whippy van or something. That's a story for another time.
It's the exposure of it. When we're in recruits, we had a day, we went to the wets, right? So we drove from RAF base. We'll go over to Kapooka and we'll go in there.
You would have loved that.
Fuck,
mate.
have we just gone from live fire artillery to the wets?
Well,
that's all right.
Dane loved it because he never had to clean his rifle at the back end of it. So
we go to the wets, and then as the bus pulls in, MSI gets up and goes, just remember, this place is full of army, so just stick together. And we're like, okay. So we get out and we've got our stupid webbings on and we look like fucking pelicans walking around. So we walk in, and then all I remember is this guy walking past, didn't have his hat on, and this sergeant just going oi, to this army bloke, where's your fucking hat? You get the fucking, your slouch hat, you get here. And we all just went, ooh. Yeah. we all just glued to each other holy shit.
Like bloody sardines on the water, mate. Just
get me off this base.
So that's what it was like, right? Like when I was doing my IET or initial employment training gun line for 6-8 weeks, whatever it was, up at the School of Artillery in North Ed, there were fucking 10 big, burly fucking gun sergeants fucking cruising around, fucking barking orders. Like it was like walking on your fucking whole life. Your whole life was on eggshells.
Yeah.
And you were fucking marching out the front, answering your name, yes sir, no sir, fucking this way, that way, marching, running, fucking you name it. It was intense.
Yeah.
I years ago I did the ghost tour up at the Q station up at North Head,
Nice.
which is fucking spooky as shit.
Yep.
But I reckon there's a few souls from the people that were yelled at.
Oh fuck yeah! Like it was.
Not just the quarantine station, but I reckon there's a few souls that got left behind there from the sounds of it.
But again, like it was right up my alley. Like, you know, you a little bit like drill. You yell when you're in drill to instill confidence in yourself and those around you. So, you know, when you're on the gun line, you fucking yell, and when you got to follow the orders, and like everything gets done to a, you know, literally military precision style activity. You know, once again to make sure it's nothing fucks up. So I got from there, finished there, and I'm like, sweet. Now I'm a qualified gunner, and I got posted out to 812 Medium Regiment. So this is in.
Those are the early days before they moved to Darwin.
I was just about to say. So the whole of 1 brigade, ladies and gents, for those that are, you know, that what is in Darwin now was in Holsworthy.
What is in Darwin and Adelaide now used to be in Holsworthy.
True, good point. So the whole of 5-7, the whole of 1 Armoured, the whole of 2 Cav, the whole of 812, the whole of 1 Transport, the whole of fucking 1 CER. Like there was 5,000 troops at Holsworthy. It was fucking massive. So you know, to be out there and you know, being a part of that was like really, really cool. Down the pucker every couple of months doing like massive brigade level activities, and it was fucking very, very intense, right? But it's almost like as you go up a little bit, you always sort of get knocked down a couple of pegs. I remember in late 1990, like again, so now I'm getting even more confident. You know, I'm doing reasonably well on the gun line. We went down and did some adventure training down in Tasmania, and we were, you know, mountain bike around everywhere, et cetera, and I had to get up. I had to go to bed early and get up for picket. And one of the other guys fucking followed me back from where we were and came back to the bloody tent and fucking filled me in. And he's like, everyone fucking hates you. You're a fucking gobby little prick. I'm here to fucking deliver a message to you. Pull your fucking head in, and fucking literally tan my ass. Like, he's a big burly bloke. He'd been in the unit for like 5 years. 5 years as a senior digger, and you're there for fucking 5 weeks. He's like, you know, a bloody walking god. So that was a real eye opener to me. I'm like, I need to pull my fucking head in because this is obviously not going too well. So yeah, that was an interesting little experience to go through. Like, there's commonly known now, ladies and gents, as dead ground counselling.
What? I'm just curious now. Obviously, you probably have, in hindsight and reflection, some idea of the shit you were doing that wasn't enamoring for yourself to the other lads. Like,
Yeah.
what type of stuff were you doing as a young digger there that sort of put you on the wrong side of them?
Oh, I guess I used to get plenty of feedback from the senior diggers, the Lance Jacks and the full tracks, just being arrogant, you know, just being cocky, just, you know, not being insubordinate, because obviously that's bad. You get charged for that shit and bloody thrown in jail. But just not being a good team player, not putting others, you know, putting others before yourself. And you know, yeah, also just being a little bit selfish there. So yeah, it was an interesting little experience to go to. This fucking guy, you know, certainly bloody whacked me around the head a few times, and I went to bed fucking crying again that night, going, "Fuck, what do I, you know, pull your fucking head in," sort of thing. So yeah, it was an interesting little activity. I was working on a gun by the legend himself, Stretch Phillips, Sergeant Mark Phillips, and he was like a big gangly fucking maniac of a man, legend in the artillery. And this is where I really started to find my true self. He was ruthless. There were no excuses for anything. We had to be the first gun into action and out of action. You know, you're now chuckling, Dan, because you know what it's like when they're there. And I guess he brought a sense of competitiveness. He brought a sense of ruthlessness. He brought a sense of teamwork into my life that I still am so grateful today. You know, just the way that he taught us and the way that he mentored us. Everyone, we were all fucking shit scared of him, and he used to berate the fuck out of us all the time. But as we all sort of say now, it came from a place of love. You didn't know that at the time, but he really made us into the men that we were, and like the other guys that were on,
Is
you know,
he
my
still
gun.
around?
Yeah, fucking oath he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, great bloke.
I didn't know if it
Great
was a
bloke.
really older guy that you were.
Well, he was fucking older when I'm 18 years old. Yeah.
I'm asking.
No. So he would have, he would have been in his like mid 30s, early 40s, I suppose. As a bloody high flying gun sergeant. Many years later, I got to be a gun sergeant as well, and I'll sort of share that with you. But yeah, and certainly I drove my guys, and we did the same sorts of things there. So to have that sort of organised chaos, it's funny, Dan. I love it how you know a little bit about the artillery, because you are now sitting here nodding your head, smirking, going, "I know exactly what you're talking about."
Yeah.
But you never knew me as a senior NCO.
No. I was just giggling about it because I was thinking about some of the young bombers that were also sort of filling that role, and I can just remember a few of them. Bombardier Finlay was one of them that straight up comes to mind of like, he would have also been that young bombardier or senior digger that would have been quite happily able to flog you about and provide you some of that performance counselling. But at the same time, he was also the one that was like ruthless in driving people to be like with first in action every single time without fail. And you just know who those one or two people are in each of the gun lines as well. And you're just like, yeah, I've seen that quite a few times, and you know that person is driving their team to a higher level than the others you see around them.
I love that sort of competitive environment. I love that no excuses, no whinging, nothing ever. Like, it was just like be the best, be the best, be the best. So I was really lucky. I got promoted to Lance Bombardier a couple of years later. So I was a 20-year-old young junior NCO, which I was extremely proud about, and I really, really enjoyed that. And then I went and did my junior leadership course. So, sometimes, Tammy, I'm like, better. When I say that, there was a guy who was on my junior leadership course in 1993. He asked us to do a piece of drill that he gave the wrong command with, and then he had to like back out of it a little bit, and then we did it properly, and he's like, better, and like that's now with me fucking 30 years later. So it's funny how those little sort of sayings come there. But I loved drill. I loved being giving drill to other people. I loved that sort of teamwork and real embodiment of being a junior NCO sort of really came to the fore back then. So couple of years later, I was presented with a Soldier's Medallion as well, and so that was I got Soldier of the Year for 1993, and that's what got me on a trip. So there was a 75th anniversary of World War One, and then we took all the World War One veterans. There was still about 30 or 40, alive. I suppose they were dropping like flies back then. So that the 70, 80 that were still alive in 1990. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, so it was probably half of them there. So we were the military contingent that went across there. So we actually did a service at the Menin Gate at Ypres there, which joins Belgium and France. So they still play the last post there every single night now, based on the actions that were there. So that was amazing to go to like Polygon Wood, Mont Saint Quentin, the Battle of the Somme, etc., etc. So we went to all these other battlefields that were the heart and soul of the Anzac legend. Besides Gallipoli anyway, certainly on the Western Front in France, we got to sort of travel around there for 3 weeks, and it was fucking awesome. Like the same again, I got to hear the last post. We did so many rehearsals, and then we did the actual bloody thing there. I got to the actual thing being the ceremony. I got to go up there and lay a wreath in the eternal flame of the Arc de Triomphe, for instance, in fucking Paris. Same thing. Thank you. Triumph. Buddy. Mate, I'm from the country. Isn't it funny? Sometimes you're like, geez, you're a fucking bogan sometimes, Robbie. I'm like, no, I'm from the country. It's different. I'm not a bogan. So again, I just had like literally fucking, the green was pumping through my veins by this stage. I loved being a junior NCO. I loved being in the army. I was fit as fuck. I was, the captain coach of the Aussie Rules team. I was a bloody athletics champion at the 1 Brigade sports thing there. So, yeah, it was a really, really awesome time in my life, I suppose. When did you really, Dane, start hitting your straps to go, I'm actually loving being in the Air Force right now? When was that? Give us a bit of a sense of those moments.
Probably when I went to C-17s, to be honest. Like, once you sort of get in, you sort of get there initially, and there's 8 jets there, and they always say you see the world one night at a time because it's heavy airlift, right? Like you could leave Alaska, like Anchorage in Alaska, and you could fly an air-to-air refuel and punch people out the back at Nowra, and then pivot there and then land in Ambly one flight. Like you can go fucking anywhere on this thing. And I think when I first got in, and you're a fucking junior, and you're just trying to just get good at your job. So try and get good at your job, and I was probably a bit similar. Like I asked a lot of questions. I always put my hand up for more difficult tasks because I wanted to get onto those. Because I think it would just keep expanding my skill set. Once I sort of did that, and then I sort of got notice of doing that. Like, we'll go to Dane if you want to talk about anything sort of liquid dry breathing oxygen or anything like that. Once that sort of happened, I started getting on those trips and started moving around a lot on those trips. So getting to go over to America, like you could come into work. 8 o'clock in the morning, throw your bags on the jet, and you'd be in Waikiki that night. Partying at Kelly's. But once I sort of did that, I was like, fuck, man, I could do this for the rest of my life. But I just knew that's unachievable because in the end you get posted at some point. But being able to go and do that was amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, good. Dan, what about you? When did you realise that you've sort of got over the thrill of joining? You're in the groove now. Let's quickly tell that story about you meeting me at Duntroon, etc. Like, obviously, you would have got out.
I don't know if anyone wants to hear that, mate.
I'll tell it just quickly.
No,
I was
it's all right.
fucking yeah.
It's
You
all
go.
right.
You go.
Yeah. So obviously, while you're down at Duntroon in the cadets mess, there's a rather large stairway up to the dining hall and everything like that. We were having a dining in night there, and there was a few bottles of wine probably consumed, and obviously by the end of the night, the port gets passed around the table, and everyone's very, very merry. But then we decided we had some mess games, and there was a few office chairs that were around the place. So there was basically a relay race around the cadets mess there, and it all sort of ended rather tamely throughout the evening. And then some people were like, no worries, we'll just kick on. We'll have a few more beers here and we'll see where the night goes. But I mean, then one of my most fond memories of RT is when he was sitting on one of those said office chairs and decided to push himself backwards down the set of stairs all the way out the front of the cadets.
I don't know how I didn't fucking break my neck. Like, this is like probably 30 stairs that I fell down backwards.
You just watched him like tumble and tumble and tumble and then tumble. And then I can't remember who it was. Was it maybe Nick Hodder was there at the time?
Yeah, I think someone come and fucking grab me on the thing.
He said, Turner, it's time for you to leave, buddy. And but that's one of the earliest memories I suppose I have, and it's probably not the last time that I've seen Robbie passed out or in a state where he's fallen down a set of stairs. But it was probably the first time that I saw it, yeah.
Yeah. But when did you sort of hit your groove there? Obviously, you're going through Duntroon, doing the officer training, and then, same sort of deal, got yourself in unit life. When did you really sort of start that?
When I realised I knew nothing. That was the most powerful point to me. Obviously, like as a young officer, you sort of always get told, you need to listen to people around you and everything like that. But you've also like gone through the College of Knowledge, like you know shit, right? But as a young RAMI officer, basically I got paired up with either a very senior WO 2 or a WO 1. So people have been in the military for like 20, 25 years at that point in time, and they actually know boats. You're not just turning up going, I know boats. You actually like find people who know boats.
What does that mean? No boats?
I know boats. Like, it's when someone says, I know a boat, I know everything about that. You actually find someone who actually knows everything about it from that perspective.
They know their shit.
Yes.
It's a military phrase or something.
Yeah. But I guess what Dan's talking about, a lot of people think they know boats, but they don't actually know boats.
You don't know until you don't know what you don't know.
Well, people are just fucking jawing off about that. Well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a product though of that. So like, I know Robbie and I went through commissioning, after being in the military. So and I always think that
we're still in the military when we get commissioned.
Yeah. So I always used to think like you can always tell someone who's a direct officer or a mixed blood because they always seem to like when you get a direct officer, their views on
go
things,
easy on him.
Yeah. Sorry, I know you don't take any offence to this, but
I'm getting
their views of
some
how
knife hands here too, Bob.
Yeah. So their views of how they manage people always seems to be a bit off kilter, and I think and because I went through and breathed that when going through that training. They're like, you got to get in. You need to be able to mentor your troops and stuff like that. I'm like, fuck, mate. When you get in there, they'll be mentoring you.
Yeah.
Because when you've got a warrant officer or a flight sergeant or a sergeant who's been there for, plying this trade for 30 years or whatever it is, I said to tell you what, you'll be with them and you'll walk literally next to them and all you're going to be doing is signing things. Yep. But they'll be telling you what to sign. And you'll slowly grow from that. And then when you become more of a senior officer, then it sort of pivots. So is something I think comes out of training, I think.
Yeah. So, but eventually when I realised, I'm like, actually, I don't really know what's going on here. I think the first time I really had to stand on my own 2 feet and really rely upon one of those senior WO 1s or WO 2s was when I was posted to 8-9. So I went to 8-12 and then I came back to 8-9 at the infantry battalion. And
in Brisbane here?
In Brizzy. And I had a relatively strong WO 1 beside me who taught me a lot of shit. But also what you sort of said there, Dane, where it's like he'll tell you what to sign. He was less about telling you what to sign. He would actually explain to you what you needed to sign from that instance. And then he'd be like, oh, and by the way, you need to go and crack skulls up at the CEO's conference. And he'd just put me in front of people and be like, you need to go and do that.
Yep.
That is your job, is to be able to look after the lads, represent our interests, and do all of that stuff. But he empowered me with the knowledge that I needed to be actually able to go and do that. And like, you don't necessarily get that when you're an officer. From that, you need to have those really exceptional people around you that are willing to take the time and effort to do that. And that's probably when I started to hit my straps, I reckon.
And it's funny too, because it can be a bit of a licorice all sorts, right? Like, so I had one where I came through and like the senior airmen would, I'm not going to slight them, but it probably weren't up to scratch. But then I moved to one where I had a fantastic warrant officer.
Yeah.
Dins, give you a shout out as well, mate. Like, fantastic. And I remember him saying to me, he goes, I'm managed by making officers feel bad. And like the way he would talk and stuff like that, like it was something of beauty, man. Like, I was like, you're like fucking Shakespeare, mate.
That's mentorship, mate.
Yeah,
that's gold.
He's incredible. The things he'd impart and the stuff, like, he always, like, whenever I go, like, oh, we can do this, he goes, well, what's our intent? What are we trying to achieve? Like, what are we trying to achieve? Like, always bring me back to these core things. And he's fantastic. I used to say to him, like, mate, you should just go straight to fucking squadron leader. That's what I reckon. But he was just having someone like that. But he was an ADG, and he'd been in since probably Robbie's era, like joined 1990. Just a fantastic
Junior
mate.
Roman Centurion back in the day.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
He's really, really good. So I really valued my time with him. So I got to spend 18 months with him as a junior officer, and he was just very, very, very good.
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Yeah. I was going to say, Anne and I, when you're talking about there being like senior enlisted, like warrant officers, and there's warrant officers, like Anne, who I also met at RMC, she was an officer as well. We often have a chuckle about, like, we'll say, like, oh, they're such a warrant officer. Because that the typical version of the warrant officer, not the type of the mentoring warrant officer that I've spoken about, but like it being a little licorice all sorts, as we spoke about, those not high performers are just such warrant officers.
Just checking out.
Yeah.
Those ones are checking out. But when you get one that still has the buy-in and the knowledge, like it is so good for your development. And Robbie, you know more than anyone, obviously, being like at top of one tier and then moving to the other.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'll come back to the rest of my story soon when we'll wrap this little episode up in a second, but let me just sort of finish off here. I loved going to Duntroon as a captain instructor, having not gone through there as a cadet. It was weird because I was walking around asking the other captains, hey, where's the ROP? Where's the orderly room? Where's the Q store? And they're looking at me going, what do you fucking mean you don't know? I'm like, I didn't come through here as a cadet. So it was good. I got to meet a whole new cohort of people that were at that sort of that level there. Certainly I got, I guess based on my experience, I got chosen to be the inaugural senior instructor of the leadership wing. So, as what both of you are now explaining, the most important relationship of that a junior officer is going to have is that with their senior NCOs or warrant officers. And at the end of the day, unless you've been a senior NCO and warrant officer, you can't let them know what that relationship is going to be. You can give them an idea, and yes, there's an internal rank structure at Duntroon to sort of get people used to the Lance Corporal, Corporal, Sergeant, warrant officer, way of doing stuff in the Army, because obviously Duntroon's a very Army-specific leadership institution. And certainly when the cadets found out I was a what did you call it? Not a retread,
Mixed blood.
An ex-blood, okay.
Mixed blood.
Mixed blood. When they found out I commissioned across, they just knew they come to me straight away. They went, sir, now we can tell why you're different. And I just knew. I said, look, I'm not better or worse than any other captain instructors here. There are some fucking awesome guys and girls here that have got some amazing experiences they'll pass on. I'm just different. I just come from a different sort of background, and at the end of the day, I can pass on experiences to you that you won't get from anyone else. Because I was the only ex-sergeant at Duntroon at the time, so it was really cool.
I'm curious to know, because oftentimes during promotion ceremonies when people are getting made up from private to Lance Corporal or up to Bombardier or whatever the rank might be, often it's spoken about junior NCOs being one of the best ranks in the military. So to tell us about your experience, because you've been a junior NCO, but you've obviously moved on from there. Like, where would you rank your time as a bomber out of like all your time in the military?
Oh, mate, I loved it. I'll tell a little 5-minute story. We'll finish up. It's actually funny because one of the things I wanted to pass on is that there was a real junction in my career. I don't reckon very, very, very few people know about this. So I almost went one way, but I ended up, getting to the point that we're sort of talking about now. I loved being so at the end of 95, I did my para course. So when 1 Brigade got the word to go to Darwin, I was like, fuck, I'm not going to Darwin. I love it here in Sydney. I'll go jump out of planes. So I went to my para course in 1995, and then I just went across the fence and went to A Battery instead. So I got to stay in Sydney, and I loved it there. And I guess being a junior NCO, you do have that extra level of responsibility, that extra level of leadership, et cetera, et cetera. But the main opportunity I got was that when I went to be a forward observer, my FO went and did his SAS selection course. So I had to step up and be the FO, which is a captain equivalent of that team for the whole year. So I got more exposure to joint firepower, more exposure to leadership, lost more responsibility as far as that goes. And the battery commanders at the time were treating me like I was a captain, even though I was only a first year junior NCO. And I loved it. Like, it was fucking awesome. I really, really enjoyed that sort of part of it. Like I said, I was fit as fuck at this stage, walking around. I got pulled over by the cops one night because I was walking around with a pack on my back out the back of Ingleburn when I was living with my wife at the time, with a big bloody steel rod, the fake weapons that people sort of use. I got pulled over. It was like someone reported me because they thought someone was walking around with a bloody rifle in the burbs. I'm like, no, mate, I'm in the army. I'm just bloody training for these courses. And I was like really, really good mates with the guys in the gym, Leroy, friend. There was a PDIs course coming up, and they were going to run that PDIs course, and there was a huge demand for PDIs at that time. Service was overwhelmed. They were going to run the PDI course at Holsworthy. I was best mates with all the PDIs. I was like, fuck, I'm going to put my transfer in to go to bloody PDIs instead. And there's no fucking doubt about it, I would have got on that course. Like, I would have become a PDI. We came up here to Brisbane, and we had to fly up on a C-130. We were doing some JTAC work up here with the F-111s, and we had an afternoon off. Me and some other boys were like, fuck this, let's go into bloody Brisbane, into Brisbane. So we went into bloody Brisbane, Queen Street Mall, and time started to get away from us. We hopped in a cab, and we got back to Amberley late. The fucking C-130 was burning and turning on the tarmac. We're literally doing the Harry Two-Toe, fucking running across the tarmac, trying to bloody catch this sked back to Sydney. We jumped on the plane, and my fucking BC was like, just gave me like a real like death stare, fucking big time. I knew I was in the shit. Got back to bloody Holsworthy, sure enough, next day, bang, on the bloody mat. And because I was captain coach of the footy team, and this guy was a good mate of mine on the footy field, still a really great mentor of mine right now. He pulled me aside. He's like, that was fucking unacceptable. You've ruined our reputation. We were in front of the RAF. Boom, 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 boom. Guess what? You're being pulled off that PDI course. You're not going to be a PDI. I'm fucking counting it right now. Exercise Swift Eagles leaves in 2 weeks. Pack your shit. You're leaving to go that way. And I never ever bloody turned back. So I was on the train to be a PDI one day, and I actually got pulled off that because of an indiscretion. And you know what? I was pissed off. I was angry. I had destructive behaviour. I had to get pulled in again. He's like, don't go down this fucking path. I'll fucking throw you in jail if you don't fucking pull your head in and cop it on the chin. You fucked up. You're the one that's got to wear the responsibility. I don't give a fuck that you don't want to be a PDI. Like, you're not going to be a PDI anymore. You're going to fucking Townsville. See you later. So yeah, that was a really, really junction point in my life, and then we'll carry on the rest of the story in another episode. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dane. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Tammy.
I hope all our civilian friends were able to keep up with the amount of acronyms in that one. You guys are throwing them left, right, and centre.
I didn't even realise.
Me either.
Yeah.
Clarity and brevity. You'll get used to it.
Quite a few times I was like, don't know what that means, but I still was able to keep up with the story.
Do you guys enjoy that one?
I'm sure everyone else will.
You guys enjoy that? Awesome. Thanks, Tammy. All right.
Thanks
Guys.
See you soon.
Ya.
Bye.